So a whopping R1.43 increase per litre for the price of diesel kicked in at midnight. Petrol, of course, also up by over 50 cents a litre. While fuel hikes always have a knock-on impact on food and other prices, diesel increases have an added punch, unfortunately. I'm joined now by Christo van Rheede, Executive Director of Agri SA. Mr. van Rheede, thank you so much for your time. We know that the trucks, and we spoke to the Road Freight Association, many of them use diesel. Talk to me about how this really high diesel increase has an impact on farming.
Remember, farmers use diesel for almost every aspect of agriculture. First and foremost, you need to transport your inputs from wherever you buy it to the farm. And for that, you use a truck. Truck also requires diesel. If you start with planting, and remember, it's now the summer grain season that's on us, and farmers need diesel for those tractors to do the plowing. And obviously, once the crop is ready to be harvested, they need diesel for the combine harvesters. And with the big challenge of load shedding, farmers require lots of diesel to ensure that the irrigation systems run properly and that they run for the amount of hours to complete a full cycle. And then obviously they need diesel generators also to keep their processing plants going. So this is a crisis for the agriculture sector. Yes, we've seen very good rains lately, and that lifts the mood of farmers. But with this continuous increase in diesel prices, also fertilizer prices, the continuous impact of load shedding, it is really demoralizing, but also very worrying, because farmers tend to lose a lot of money if they cannot, or they do not achieve the outputs that they have planned for, due to all of these factors that has an impact on that.
So in terms of trucking, it was explained that there are three options for trucking companies. They either close up shop because it's just not affordable anymore, or they try and absorb the costs themselves, or they ultimately have to pass on the costs to the consumers. Are those the choices facing the farming sector as well?
Not as yet. Remember, it's consumers that really face a double whammy. If you go back to 2015, a litre of diesel then costed approximately 10 Rand per litre. I think in 2015, or in January 21, it was 12 Rand, 54 cents per litre. And now in January 22, it was 16 Rand, 68 Rand per litre. And now it's in the region of 25 Rand. So you talk about an increase of almost 280%. Farmers try to absorb those costs. The big question is for how long? But at the end of the day, it's passed on to the consumers. Many of them are unemployed. Many of them struggle to keep their livelihoods going. And for us, that's a big worry. We've seen how the increase in food prices has impacted on consumers. Many of them simply can't afford to buy food anymore.
So the increase that we've seen overnight, how quickly is it likely to have an impact in the produce that I buy? Is it going to, for example, impact food prices as we move into the festive season, where people tend to buy more? They want to have those family gatherings. They want to buy more food.
Indeed, it's going to have an impact. Remember, many of the products that are already in storage, those products need to be transported. And if you have to transport it at a higher, at a higher cost per diesel per litre, then it's going to have an impact, definitely. We're also going to, and we also already have picked up increases in the prices of vegetables, some vegetables, some also possibility of higher meat prices. There's also higher bread prices. And this is something that we need to address. Yes, we've seen the president engaging with Saudi Arabia, engaging with other role players out there. And we need to find a way to lower the international price of crude oil. But more so, we need to ensure that when we order, petroleum for South Africa, that our harbors can, accommodate those boats and can be offloaded very quickly. Because we've seen already, the stories that do the round that we're going to have fuel shedding. And it's not very good news for general consumers and for the market out there. Now, we were informed that that is not the case, but it leads to some people buying much more diesel than they should buy, and that leads to shortages on the market. So the last thing that we can afford is for people to get overexcited and to panic. And this is something that we will have to manage because it's going to impact on food prices.
So we have seen, overall you've explained how the price of fuel has just shot up over the last year or so. But we have had a month or so where we've seen a bit of a decrease, which is, of course, very welcome. Have you been given a forecast? Do you have a forecast of what we can expect around fuel prices, diesel and petrol, in December and January? Are we looking at more increases, or might we see a bit of stability? Was it really difficult to predict?
We were quite relieved when we heard, or that we've learned that your food inflation has, been on the decline. Yes, it's not a very big decline, but at least we've seen also some food prices, especially the price of edible oils and so forth. There's a steady decline in terms of prices, and that for us brought some hope. But with Russia now sort of renegating on the wheat exports, the deal that was struck between themselves and Ukraine, that is going to put a lot of pressure on wheat prices, and is going to put a lot of upward pressure on diesel as well, or petroleum in general, as well as fertilizer. And these things, at the end of the day, add to production costs. And farmers are the first in line to absorb those costs. And remember, farmers are not price makers, they are price takers. And when they try to pass on that cost, it becomes a big challenge for them because it doesn't necessarily been accepted by the retailers. So retailers then obviously pass that cost on to your consumers. But for us, the big worry is that if there is no relief soon in terms of diesel prices and as well as fertilizer prices, then we're going to see even a bigger increase in terms of food inflation.
Yeah, and a country like ours where so many people are living below the poverty line, that is very troubling to consider. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening, Christo van Rheede, Executive Director of Agri SA.